The intercom buzzed sharply just as Elena was wiping down the kitchen counter. She glanced at her husband. "Are we expecting anyone?" she asked. Victor shook his head. "Not that I know of." The buzzing came again, longer this time, impatient. Victor walked to the hallway and pressed the button. "Yes." A woman's voice answered, tight and overly polite. "Good afternoon. Do the Morozovs live here?" "Yes. I would like to speak with you. It concerns something important. Personal."
Victor hesitated.
The tone alone was enough to make his shoulders stiffen. About what exactly? It would be better to discuss it inside. Elena had already stepped into the hallway. She raised her eyebrows in silent question. Victor sighed and unlocked the door. A tall woman in a fitted beige coat entered the apartment without waiting for further invitation. Her lips were curved into a strained smile that did not reach her sharp gray eyes. She glanced around the hallway, taking in the polished floor, the framed photographs, the expensive mirror. "I'm Larissa Ivanovna," she announced, removing her gloves slowly. "And you are Viktor Andreevich and Elena Sergeyevna, I assume?" "Yes," Victor replied cautiously. "Please come in. Let's sit in the living room." They led her to the spacious living area. Large windows overlooked the river embankment. The afternoon light filled the room with a golden glow. Larissa noticed everything: the leather sofa, the sleek television, the bookshelf arranged with deliberate neatness. She sat down straight-backed on the edge of the armchair, as if presiding over a meeting. "Before we begin," she said, "I would like to clarify something. Your son Dennis is at home." "No," Elena answered quickly, alarm creeping into her voice. "He's at university."
"Why?
"Has something happened?" Larissa waved her hand dismissively. "Nothing like that."
No accidents."
"But there is a matter that requires explanation." Victor crossed his arms. "We're listening." Larissa leaned forward. "Why are you forbidding your son from seeing my daughter?" The question hung in the air like a dropped plate.
Elena blinked.
"Your daughter?"
"Yes. Marina.
Larissa's chin lifted.
Marina Larionova."
"Dennis has been seeing her for several months."
Victor frowned.
"We are not forbidding Dennis from seeing anyone. He's 22. Larissa let out a humorless laugh. "Oh, please. Don't pretend. Marina told me everything." She said Dennis explained that his parents are not thrilled about their relationship. Elena exchanged a glance with her husband. "We've never even heard the name Marina before," she said slowly. Larissa's expression hardened. "Now you're denying it entirely?" "We're not denying anything," Victor replied evenly. "We simply don't know who you're talking about." Larissa stood up abruptly and began pacing. "How convenient. You live in this prestigious complex, overlooking the river. Of course you think you're above everyone else."
Elena stiffened.
"Excuse me? You heard me." Marina said Dennis hinted that his parents prefer he focus on his future, on building connections with the right people. Larissa made air quotes with her fingers. And that Marina might not fit into that picture. Victor felt irritation flare inside him. "Larissa Ivanovna, you've made a long trip for nothing. We have never judged anyone your daughter associates with. Dennis is free to make his own decisions." "Then why," Larissa pressed, "did he tell her that his family moves in different circles?" Elena folded her hands in her lap. "Perhaps you should ask Dennis what he meant by that." Larissa stopped pacing and looked at them carefully, as though recalculating. "Marina said your son comes from an influential family. That both of you hold senior positions at the city council." Victor's eyebrows shot up. "City council?" "Yes," Larissa said impatiently. "That's what Marina was told." Elena couldn't help it, she laughed. Victor stared at his wife in disbelief before a smile tugged at his own lips. "I'm sorry," Elena said, trying to regain composure. "But that's quite a misunderstanding." Larissa narrowed her eyes. "You expect me to believe you're not officials? Look around. This apartment alone speaks for itself." Victor leaned back against the sofa. "Appearances can be misleading. I'm an operations manager at a logistics warehouse on the outskirts of town. And I'm a senior nurse at the regional hospital," Elena added calmly. Larissa stared at them. You're not working for the government? No, Victor said. Not unless you count paying taxes. The woman sank slowly back into the armchair. Her earlier confidence wavered. But Marina insisted. She said Dennis carries himself like someone from a powerful family.
Elena smiled faintly.
He carries himself like someone we raised to be polite. Silence stretched across the room. Larissa cleared her throat. Regardless of your occupations, my daughter feels that Dennis is pulling away. She believes it's because you disapprove of her. We don't even know her, Victor said firmly. How could we disapprove? Larissa's gaze sharpened again. Marina studies economics. She has ambitions. She wants to work in international finance. She isn't some small-town girl without prospects. That's wonderful, Elena replied. We respect ambition. Then why, Larissa insisted, did Dennis say he couldn't promise anything serious because his parents expect him to think strategically about marriage? Victor felt a flicker of understanding. Maybe he meant that at 22, he isn't ready to plan a wedding. Larissa hesitated. For the first time since entering the apartment, uncertainty replaced accusation in her eyes. My daughter has always aimed high, she admitted. She chooses her acquaintances carefully. When she said she was dating someone whose parents were well-connected, I thought it would open doors. Elena's voice softened. Doors should open because of ability, not because of who someone's parents are. Larissa looked down at her gloved hands. You say that now. It's what we taught Dennis, Victor replied. Whatever he becomes will depend on his work, not ours. The woman inhaled deeply. So you truly never told him to distance himself from Marina? Never, Elena said. If he has doubts, they're his own. Larissa stood again, but this time without aggression. She walked toward the window, gazing at the river below. I may have misjudged you, she admitted quietly. Marina can be imaginative. She likes to present situations in a way that flatters her. Victor rose as well. Perhaps both of them are trying to impress each other. Larissa gave a short, almost embarrassed smile. It seems I arrived ready for battle. You certainly did, Elena said gently. Another silence settled, but this one felt less hostile. I only want the best for my daughter, Larissa said at last. I don't want her chasing illusions. And we want the same for our son, Victor replied. Maybe the best solution is for them to have an honest conversation, without assumptions about status or influence. Larissa nodded slowly. Perhaps you're right. She turned toward the door. Her posture, once rigid with indignation, now carried traces of awkwardness. I apologize for accusing you, she said. I was convinced you considered us beneath you. Elena walked her to the hallway. We don't measure people that way. At the threshold, Larissa paused. If Dennis truly cares for Marina, I hope he proves it. Not with stories about powerful parents, but with sincerity. So do we, Victor answered. The door closed softly behind her.
Elena exhaled. Well.
That was unexpected. Victor rubbed his temples. Apparently, our son has been promoted to the offspring of city officials.
Elena laughed quietly.
We should ask him what else we've become. Victor's expression turned thoughtful. More importantly, why he felt the need to exaggerate. They exchanged a long look. Outside, the river continued its steady flow, indifferent to misunderstandings and ambitions alike. Inside the apartment, a different current was beginning to move, one that would require careful navigation when Dennis returned home that evening. Dennis came home later than usual that evening. The hallway light was still on, and he immediately sensed something was different. His mother rarely left lights burning unnecessarily. He stepped inside quietly, slipping off his sneakers. Mom?
Dad.
We're in the kitchen, Victor's voice called out, calm but unusually firm.
Denis swallowed.
That tone meant a conversation was waiting for him. He entered the kitchen and found both parents seated at the table. No television humming in the background.
No casual tea cups.
Just two mugs, untouched, and their eyes fixed on him. What happened? Dennis asked, trying to smile. You look like I've committed a crime. Did you?
Elena replied softly.
He frowned.
What?
Victor gestured toward the empty chair. Sit down, Dennis. He obeyed, his mind racing through possibilities. Unpaid bills? Trouble at university? Parking ticket? None seemed likely. We had a visitor today, Victor began. Dennis stiffened almost imperceptibly. A visitor?
Yes.
Larissa Ivanovna. The color drained from his face. She came here? Elena noticed the reaction immediately. So you do know who that is? Of course I know who she is, Dennis muttered. She's Marina's mother. But why would she come here? To ask why we are forbidding you to see her daughter, Victor replied evenly.
Denis blanked.
You're what? That's exactly what we asked, Elena said. He let out a short, incredulous laugh. This is insane. You never said anything about Marina. Apparently, Victor continued, you told Marina that we disapprove of her. Dennis opened his mouth, then closed it again. Did you?
Elena pressed gently.
He rubbed his forehead. It's not like that. Then how is it? Victor asked. Dennis leaned back in his chair, exhaling heavily. Marina has expectations. Big ones. She always talks about networking, influence, climbing fast. She kept asking about you, what exactly you do, who you know. And what did you tell her? Victor's voice remained controlled, but there was steel underneath.
Denis hesitated.
I might have exaggerated a little. Elena stared at him. Exaggerated? I didn't want to seem ordinary, he admitted quietly. Everyone around her acts like they're destined for something huge. Their parents own companies, hold positions. I didn't want to be the guy whose dad manages a warehouse and whose mom works night shifts at a hospital. Silence filled the kitchen. Elena's expression did not show anger, only hurt. You're ashamed of us?
No.
Dennis said quickly. That's not it. I'm proud of you. You worked hard for everything we have. But around her it felt like being average wasn't enough. Victor's jaw tightened. So, you turned us into city officials. Dennis looked down at the table. At first it was just vague. I said you worked in administration. Then she started assuming things. I didn't correct her. And when you needed distance, Elena said slowly, you told her we were against the relationship.
Denis nodded faintly.
She started talking about the future, about how our families could help each other. It scared me. I'm not ready for that. So I said my parents would expect me to think strategically. Victor let out a low whistle. Strategically. I didn't mean it the way it sounds, Dennis insisted. I just needed space. Elena folded her hands. Instead of telling her honestly, he had no answer. Victor stood up and walked to the window, staring out into the dark courtyard. Her mother came prepared for a confrontation, he said. She believed we looked down on them.
Denis winced.
That sounds like Larissa Ivanovna. She also believed, Elena added, that having a connection to us would open doors. Dennis closed his eyes briefly. That's exactly what Marina thinks. Everything is about leverage. And what do you think? Victor asked without turning around.
Denis hesitated.
I don't know anymore. When we first started dating, it was fun. She's smart, confident. But after a while, it felt like I was part of a plan. Elena's gaze softened. A plan for what? For advancement. She kept saying how perfect it was that our families were aligned. I realized she wasn't just dating me. She was calculating. Victor turned back to face him. And instead of stepping away honestly, you built a lie.
Denis nodded slowly.
I thought it was harmless. It never is, Victor replied quietly. Another silence settled, heavier this time. I didn't expect her mother to show up, Dennis said. That's extreme. People become extreme when pride is involved, Elena answered. And ambition. Dennis looked at his mother. Was she awful? She was defensive, Victor said. Accusatory at first. Then confused.
I'm sorry, Denis whispered.
Elena reached across the table and touched his hand. We're not angry because of embarrassment. We're disappointed because you felt you had to rewrite us.
Denis' throat tightened.
I didn't rewrite you. I just upgraded the description. Victor almost smiled despite himself. We are not software, Dennis.
A find chacle escapé de Elena.
The tension eased slightly. What will you do now? She asked. Dennis stared at the table again. I need to talk to Marina. Tell her the truth. All of it. And if she walks away? Victor asked. Then she walks away, Dennis said after a pause. I'd rather lose her than keep pretending.
Elena nodded approvingly.
That's the first sensible thing you've said tonight. Dennis managed a small smile. I didn't mean to drag you into this. You didn't drag us, Victor corrected. You involved us. There's a difference. We are part of your life, whether you upgrade us or not. Dennis looked up at his father. You're not disappointed in what I want, are you? I mean, wanting more? Victor's expression softened. Ambition is not the problem. Losing yourself while chasing it is. Elena added, and never measure your worth by someone else's expectations.
Denis inhalait deeply.
What if Marina doesn't understand? Then she isn't the right person for you, Elena said simply. Victor returned to the table and sat down. We don't need to be officials for you to have opportunities. You build them yourself.
Denis nodded slowly.
I guess I forgot that. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, marking the shift from tension to reflection. You know, Victor said thoughtfully, when I was your age, I also tried to impress someone. I borrowed a friend's car and pretended it was mine. Dennis looked up in surprise. Seriously?
Elena laughed.
He stalled it at a traffic light in front of half the city.
Victor shrugged.
Lesson learned. Dennis smiled more genuinely now. Did she break up with you? She did, Victor admitted. But your mother didn't care what car I drove. Elena squeezed his shoulder affectionately. Dennis felt something loosen inside his chest. I'll call Marina tomorrow. No more stories. Good, Victor said. And whatever happens, we stand by you. Warehouse manager and nurse included. Dennis met their eyes. I'm proud of you. I really am. Elena stood and hugged him. Then show it by being honest. As the evening settled into quiet, Dennis retreated to his room, phone in hand, rehearsing words he should have spoken weeks ago. In the kitchen, Victor and Elena remained for a moment longer. He's growing up, Elena murmured.
Cousin Folly, Victor replied.
But honestly,
Victor nodded.
That's what matters. Outside, the city lights shimmered against the river's dark surface. Somewhere across town, another family was likely discussing the same relationship from a very different angle. The next day would determine whether truth would close a door or open a new one built on something sturdier than borrowed status. The next afternoon, Dennis stood outside the glass entrance of a small cafe near the university. He had chosen it deliberately, neutral territory, far from both families, far from the Riverview apartment, and far from Marina's meticulously arranged home where every detail seemed curated for effect. Through the window, he saw her already seated at a table, her back straight, her phone lying beside a cup of untouched coffee. She looked composed, but he knew her well enough to notice the tension in the way her fingers tapped lightly against the ceramic. He stepped inside. Marina looked up immediately. For a brief second, relief crossed her face, but it quickly shifted into guarded expectation. You wanted to talk, she said. Yes. He sat down across from her. The cafe hummed with quiet conversations and the low hiss of the espresso machine.
Ordinary sounds.
Ordinary place. Exactly what he needed. I know your mother went to my parents yesterday, Dennis began. Marina's eyes widened slightly. She told you? They told me. She was determined.
Marina exhaled slowly.
I didn't ask her to go. I believe you, Dennis said. And he meant it. There was a pause. She studied him carefully. Did they really say they were against me? She asked.
No, Dennis replied calmly.
Because they never were. Her gaze sharpened. What does that mean? It means I lied. The words landed heavily between them. Marina's posture stiffened. About what exactly?
About them.
About us. About everything. Color slowly drained from her cheeks.
Denis?
I'm not the son of influential officials, he continued steadily. My father manages logistics at a warehouse. My mother is a nurse. They work hard. That's it. Marina stared at him, as if waiting for a punchline that never came. You told me they were in administration, she said quietly.
They are.
In the broadest possible sense of the word. He gave a faint, humorless smile. Administration of supply chains and hospital shifts. She leaned back in her chair. Why would you do that? Because I wanted to impress you, he answered without hesitation. The honesty surprised even him. Marina looked away toward the window. Students walked past, laughing, unaware of the unraveling conversation happening inside. You think I would only date someone because of their parents? She asked, her voice lower now. At first, I didn't think that, Dennis said. But you kept asking. About connections. About influence. About who they knew. That's normal, she insisted. Networking matters. I know it does, he said gently. But it started to feel like I was an investment opportunity. Silence. Marina folded her arms. My mother believes opportunities don't just appear. You have to position yourself. And, do you believe that? He asked. She hesitated. I believe you shouldn't waste chances, she said carefully. And, was I a chance?
Denis pressed.
She didn't answer immediately. That was answer enough. He inhaled slowly. When you started talking about how perfect it was that our families were aligned, I panicked. I'm 22. I don't want to be aligned like a merger. A faint flash of irritation crossed her face. So, instead you told me your parents disapproved of me? Yes. That was cruel. I know, he admitted. Her eyes softened just slightly. My mother was furious. She thought they were looking down on us. They weren't, Dennis said. They didn't even know you existed. Marina let out a quiet, almost embarrassed laugh. That's humiliating. It's human, he corrected. She stared at her coffee, then finally met his eyes again. Why tell me the truth now? She asked. Because I don't want to keep pretending.
Not about them.
Not about myself. He paused. And because I need to know whether you're here for me or for what you thought I represented. The cafe seemed suddenly quieter, though nothing had changed. Marina's expression shifted from pride to something more vulnerable. You think I'm that calculating? She asked. I think you're ambitious, he said carefully. And I think sometimes ambition makes everything look like a ladder. She looked down at her hands. For once, they were still. I grew up watching my mother fight for everything, she said softly. Nothing was handed to us. She built her business from nothing. She always said, if you see a door, open it before someone else does. And if it's the wrong door? Dennis asked. Then you close it, she replied. Another pause stretched between them, but it felt different now, less defensive, more reflective. I liked you, Marina said quietly, before I knew anything about your parents. And after? He asked. I liked the idea of us, she admitted. He nodded slowly. That distinction mattered. Do you still? He asked. She didn't answer right away. I don't know, she said finally. It's hard to separate what's real from what we built on assumptions. That's fair, Dennis said. He felt strangely calm. The fear that had haunted him all morning had dissolved into something steadier.
Truth had that effect.
My parents, he continued, were disappointed. Not because of you. Because I felt I had to upgrade them. Marina gave a faint smile. Upgrade. Yeah. That's unfortunate. It is. She leaned forward slightly. If I had known the truth from the beginning, I wouldn't have walked away. He searched her face. Would you have stayed for me? Yes, she said quietly. He believed her, at least partially. But, she added, I can't pretend that background doesn't matter at all. Of course it matters, he agreed. But it shouldn't define whether two people respect each other.
Marina nodded slowly.
My mother won't like this, she murmured. My parents didn't like it either, Dennis replied. Not the lie. A small smile flickered between them, the first genuine one since he sat down. So what now? She asked. Now, Dennis said, We decide whether we start again, honestly, or whether we accept that we wanted different things. Marina looked thoughtful. I need time, she admitted. That's reasonable. She studied him one more time, as if reassessing him without the imaginary titles and prestige. You seem different today, she said. I feel different. Because you told the truth? Yes. She nodded slowly. Then maybe this is the real beginning. Or the real ending. He stood up, and after a brief hesitation, she did too. Outside the cafe, the air was crisp and cool. The city moved around them, buses rumbling past, conversations blending into a distant hum.
I'll call you, she said.
Okay. There was no dramatic farewell, no accusations. Just two young people standing at a crossroads built not of wealth or influence, but of self-awareness. As Dennis walked away, he felt lighter. The outcome no longer terrified him. Whatever happened would be based on who he actually was, not on a borrowed identity. That evening, when he returned home, his parents were waiting again, but this time with cautious curiosity instead of tension. Well, Victor asked. I told her everything, Dennis replied. Elena searched his face. And she needs time.
Victor nodded thoughtfully.
That's fair. Dennis looked at them both, the warehouse manager and the nurse who had given him more stability than any title could provide. I'm done upgrading you, he said with a small smile. Elena laughed and pulled him into a hug. Good. We prefer the original version. Victor placed a firm hand on his son's shoulder. Remember, Dennis, real influence doesn't come from position. It comes from character.
Denis nodded.
Outside, the river continued to flow, steady and indifferent to ambition, pride, or misunderstanding. But inside the apartment, something had shifted permanently. Dennis no longer felt the need to be someone else's projection of success. Whether Marina chose to stay or walk away, he had chosen something more important, authenticity. And for the first time since the lie began, that felt like enough.